Hey guys, so for those of us that run CZ, we know that a lot of the aftermarket stuff that some of the other gun manufacturers kind of bask in just isn't available for us. Some of the stuff that's available for Glocks and M&Ps just isn't available for CZs in the same quantities that it is for those manufacturers. But now, from Norsso, we have this. This is the Reptile slide from Norsso, and I'd like to give you guys a look at this thing. Hey guys, Work here, welcome back to the bench. Today we're going to be doing a first look at the Reptile slide from Norsso for the CZ P10c. Now, this is it right here. And I have had, we got like 500 or 600 rounds through this thing so far, and so far I am pretty darn impressed. But we're not going into a review just yet. Right now, all I want to do is be able to give you guys some of the aspects of this particular slide that makes it so special. So first of all, let's talk about some of the things aside from just the way that it looks and the way that it functions. Let's go into some of the background behind what this slide is. So this slide is a made from scratch slide. This is not a modified stock slide like you see a lot of the other companies doing, where they'll take a stock slide and just cut a couple of top serrations in it, cut an optics cut in it, cut some windows in it, and call it a $500+ slide work. No, this is from scratch. Now, this particular slide is made of 17.4 stainless steel. That's right, this is stainless steel. What that means is that we're going to have a much higher corrosion resistance than we do with the stock slide. We're actually going to have a higher corrosion resistance with this particular steel than a lot of the stainless steel that's used in industry. In particular, 17.4 is used very heavily in marine applications. For those of you who don't know, marine applications require a really high level of corrosion resistance. The reason is a lot of the marine stuff is dealing with salt water, and salt spray in salt water is one of the most detrimental corrosion causing things that you can run into when you're doing materials engineering. So the 17.4 is used heavily in that industry, where a lot of special coatings are created to try to fight that corrosion resistance. Another option is by going with the material, and the 17.4 is the material that they choose. Another application that's used for this is it's used heavily in turbine engine applications due to its high strength and its heat range. It's relatively stable compared to other materials like it at the higher temperature range. A couple of the drawbacks is it's more difficult on tooling, but you get a lot higher quality finished product at the end because of that heat range that we were talking about earlier. And the way that this is heat treated by precipitate hardening. It means that it's a lot more dimensionally stable when it's done. So they can finish the part a lot closer to its final tolerance size prior to heat treatment. Then once they heat treat it, it doesn't take as much afterwork, which reduces some of that tooling cost. But more than anything, it creates a lot better finished product. Such a better finished product, in fact, that this slide, this made from scratch slide, ran exactly like stock. Now, you know, that may not sound too impressive, but considering that nowadays firearms, stock firearms, are expected to 100% function out of the box with minimal lube and, no failures, that's saying a lot. You can't get much better than that. So to give an aftermarket slide a functions as stock rating is actually a pretty damn big deal. The coating that they use on the outside of this is black nitride. Now, black nitride is it's a case hardening, and what that does is that's going to give you a really, really mechanically dexterous exterior. It's going to make it nice and hard while giving you really nice corrosion resistance, but also it gives you a lot of versatility in the slide. It makes it hard, but it doesn't make it brittle, which is really important with slides. For anybody who's seen slow motions in firearms, they bend and flex and do all sorts of weird crap. So you don't want to have it hard enough to the point of being brittle. So it's a great use to be able to get that case hardening on just the outside so that the inside still stays a little bit flexible. Again, this is a built from scratch slide. They take a bar of this, they mill it out, they heat treat it, and they coat it, and what you get is this. The insides are 100% reverse engineered from stock. What that means is that all of your stock components, your striker mechanism, that whole thing, your extractor, all fit exactly as stock. There aren't any modifications. There's no additional components. The one change or modified component that you do have is the pin that holds in your extractor. The pin is slightly shorter. The cause for that is because of our optics cut here, we don't have as much space between the extractor and the top of our slide, so they actually include 2 of those pins in your kit so that when you're swapping your internal parts over, because this does require you to swap your internal parts over. We've included that video in today's upload, so if you're getting one of these or you're interested in one of these, take a look at that. But when you're swapping those over, you don't have to do anything special. You don't have to cut down the stock pin that the CZ sends you. You get your own parts. This thing is 100% ready to go. A lot of the questions that I'm getting so far on this are sights. What sights are this using? You can see that this is using if the camera will focus, this is using a CZ cut front sight. I believe that they said the brand name for this is Ameriglow. It's an Ameriglow front suppressor height sight. The rear is actually a Glock cut rear. The reason that they're using a Glock cut rear is the width of the dovetail here is significantly smaller than it is on the CZ one. The CZ dovetails are actually pretty wide. Even the optics ready versions are pretty wide. So they cut that down a little bit to be able to give you plenty of space in here. That being said, they are looking at eventually coming out with their own manufacturer, because they do make this rear sight in-house. They're looking at making their own sights for the optics ready CZs, and then switching this over to that dovetail. So that would be awesome to get a little bit of traffic on the optics ready CZs, because there is almost no availability of the optics ready sights out there, especially co-witness sights. They really should have come co-witness from the factory. It's kind of insane that CZ didn't do that with how many suppressor ready models they give out. To not have their optics ready units come with co-witnessing height sights, little bit insane, but I digress. The optics cut. The optics cut that they come with is an RMR cut. Now, they do offer other cuts for, say, Glocks, and they will do other cuts if you special order. Now, I don't know whether that includes a price increase or not, but you can contact them and you can get another cut, but their stock cut is the RMR cut, and it is a perfect RMR cut. Now, I am not using an RMR. I'm using a Holosun 507, which does accept an RMR cut, hence why it functions perfectly here. You can see that it's got a little bit of hangover, but that's just because the 507 is a little bit wider than the slides on these. You're going to run into that with almost everything. The sights are usually a little bit bigger. Not a big deal, but their optics cut was perfect. They do include screws to go with the RMRs, because the screws that are required are a little bit shorter. Now, the Holosun screws, Holosun includes 2 lengths of screws with their dot. So I actually just grabbed the shorter Holosun screws, and they worked perfectly. I didn't have to use the Norsso screws. Were actually a little bit longer than the Holosun screws. So keep an eye out for that. If you're running a Holosun versus the RMR, you're going to want to use the Holosun screws with that one. Now, I did ask them if they'd ever be interested in running a lower cost version of this without the sight cut. They said they weren't sure yet. It depends on what the market tells them. This thing is still a pretty new product. The CZ P10, it's a pretty proven platform by now, but there's still some questioning out there on what its validity is in the marketplace. It's obviously not a Glock killer. That term was thrown out a whole bunch when it first dropped. Despite me liking this just as much, or actually I like it more than the Glock 19, it's going to take a lot to dethrone the Glock 19 as like the prime example of an EDC kit pistol. But they're going to wait and see kind of where the market shows them that they need to progress in this. If they get requests for non-optics cuts, they may make the non-optic cuts version. Now, the last big thing that I had with them is I did talk to him a little bit, and my first question was, hey, are you guys going to produce this slide in the full-size version? And the answer is, at least preliminarily, yes. They do have a preliminary cut of these coming up in the full-size versions, which is awesome because I run a P10F in competition, and I tell you, I need this. And I'll show you why here in a couple minutes. We're going to go to the tabletop, and I'll show you a little bit about why the full-size version of this is necessary. But in addition to that, they're also looking at a couple other CZs, or at least one other CZ that I know of. And I'm not going to drop it because I don't know how sure they are on it. And honestly, they said that it was a long way out, even if they could. They are packed. They are busy as can be and just don't have the machining space available to be able to do that much extra stuff. So it's going to take a large investment in capital from them to be able to get all these machines. That being said, go out and buy some of these and it'll press that a little bit more. So that being said, let's go ahead and hop down to the table really quick. I'm going to show you a couple of the different aspects of this thing that makes it so usable and unique. Okay guys, so here we are with the Norsso slide on the table. I'm going to show you a couple of the little features on this thing. Some of them I mentioned before. First of all, overall the fit and finish is excellent on this thing. You can see a couple of machining marks, but they don't like look bad. It's not like machining marks like, whoops, we screwed up here. They actually kind of worked it in. A little bit of the machining lines here on this flat face. One thing that I really like about the Norsso slides is they do their branding on there, which you expect everybody to do their branding, but they do it in a small, pretty tasteful way. You can see here, it's just a little Norsso right there on the edge. The slide is really, let's say, tasteful. It does have a couple of little lightning cut windows here, but the lightning cut windows aren't gigantic and gaudy. It's just enough to be able to see a little bit of barrel in there. If you got one of those gold titanium nitride barrels in there, it would look pretty badass. You can see it move just enough in there to be able to really highlight that barrel. The serrations on this certainly are really the part that I have found to be the most impressive. Stock P10 serrations are actually pretty darn good. Who would have thought Norsso would have one-upped them? Really, the rear serrations are good enough. The stock serrations were pretty much perfect, so there's not a whole lot of place they could have gone. They keep the edges just sharp enough to be able to really grip, but not so sharp as to hurt you. Like you can get a really good firm grip on there. Now the front serrations, on the other hand, those are where this thing shine. You can see they've got kind of this reverse cut in there, and that reverse cut lends perfectly to grip right when you grab your thumb on there to pull back your slide from the front. Dig in isn't the right word, but it locks in, and as you pull back, it actually almost gets easier because these serrations are actually pulling your fingers into the slide. And honestly, it's just amazing. Especially on an optics cut, you really need those front serrations. Obviously, your optic here is kind of blocking a lot of the serrations that you would use in standard manipulations. You can still use these, but most of us have swapped to manipulations from the front, especially unloading and just simple things like that. It's easier to go up here and use the front serrations, and on this Norsso slide, those are the shining example of awesome. Now again, as I said on the sights, the front sight is a CZ sight cut. The rear is that Glock dovetail. If I get my P10F out, here you can see the difference in the Norsso sight cut versus the CZ sight cut. You've got maybe an additional 1/8 of an inch between this one and this one. Obviously, they couldn't use the stock CZ sight cut. The stock sight cut for these is absolutely gigantic, but they are looking into eventually swapping over to this sight cut, and then whatever sights they produced would also be usable in the optics ready versions. Beyond that, as I said, everything fit perfectly. The back plate fits up perfectly. You can see here that they do have the anti-rotation mod done. As I said, the internals are 100% reverse engineered. Let me pop this open really quick. We'll take a look inside. So there are the insides of it, and everything fits exactly like stock. You can see we've got some wear right here, but that's to be expected. As I said, I've got about 500 rounds through this thing already. Here you can see that roll pin. They do include a roll spring pin in this rather than the solid pin that's in the stock one. So you don't have to stake the extractor pin in this. You rely on the roll pin for it, and that works out perfectly. It is a little bit on the wet side right now. I'm keeping it pretty well lubed while we break it in. Like any newly manufactured part, it does require a little bit of break-in, they say, but I've actually had no issues with it. It's had been 100% functional, minus one failure to hold open after I emptied I think it was the first or second mag. Beyond that, 100% reliability. And honestly, if it goes bang every time, it counts as 100% reliable in my book. Let's go ahead and pop up top and we'll finish her up. So that's it for this time, guys. A heads up on the Norsso P10c Reptile slide. In my opinion, this slide is sliding in, no pun intended, in just the right spot. Now, I talked a little bit earlier about some of the aftermarket stuff that you can get into with other slides, particularly some of the machine slides. You send off your slide, they'll do the machine work, and to get the essentially stage 2 kit, which is their top tier slide, which includes all of the stuff that the Norsso slide comes with when you buy it, it's going to cost you over $550. The Norsso slide, $459, believe it or not. And with the code WTT5, you can get 5% off of this thing. Now, 5% doesn't sound like a whole lot until you realize this is a $460 slide. That brings you to under $120 under what it would cost you to get the top tier machine slide. And this thing is from scratch. Yeah, you got to swap your internals over, but I've still got my stock P10 slide sitting up there in a box. With that, guys, we're going to go ahead and end it. Keep an eye out for this thing. I'm putting a lot of rounds through this in a pretty short amount of time. A couple of reasons. One, it is fun as hell to shoot. I love dot guns, and this slide makes it so much better. Secondly, I want to be able to get this review out to you guys, and the only way that I can do that is by tossing rounds through it. Remember, guys, if you appreciate this video, go ahead and like and subscribe down below. If you like what we do here on the channel and you want to help us out a little bit, we would love for you guys to head over to our Patreon page. That's patreon.com/WorkTheTrigger, and anything you can do to help out would help us bring you content. Remember, guys, I appreciate every one of you, and until next time, do your research, get informed, and get to work.